listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shemaiah Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shemaiah Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and we have another show lined up for you all today. Today, we have two special guests. We have Bob and Tammy Cranston. They have an amazing story. They have a website I want to put out real fast, and that's tammycranston.com, because they have a book that you need to check out. It's called The Blank Journal. But just like any other guest, these two have an amazing story. They both met in a grief support group after both losing their spouses. We're going to get into those details of how that happened. That's a pretty awesome story right from the jump, but it's more details. What started as shared tears turned into a love story, a marriage, and a pretty epic journey. If you've ever ridden one of those tandem bikes, well, guess what? They both together rode in all 50 states. Those are, I'm telling you, there's a lot more stories that we're going to be sharing on this episode with y'all. But I want to land the plane, because I could spend a whole another 30 minutes talking about their background. I just want to welcome you both, Bob and Tammy, on the show today. I'm Refocused Ready. How you both doing?
We're doing good. Thank you so much for having us.
I appreciate you both clearing your calendar to share your story and insights with our audience, and also your book, The Blank Journal, that we're going to be getting into. But I kind of teased the beginning part of the story. Kind of take us back to that part of when you lost your spouses, you end up meeting each other at a grief support group. Kind of give us the details on that story.
Sure. Well, hospice was so good to my deceased husband, Larry, and myself, that I decided that after he passed away, I wanted to become a hospice bereavement volunteer. And after he left, the grief support group was just starting in just a week. A hospice-sponsored grief support group called Life After Loss. So I enrolled in it, and they said that before I went through training to become a volunteer, that I needed to attend the grief support groups as a participant first. And that's where I met Bob at the first meeting. We both had the same social worker. We had never met. The social worker invited him, and the social worker invited me. And I would have never seen him again, except the meeting there was too many people. She wanted it to be more intimate. And so she wanted to split us up into an evening session and an afternoon session. So since I had quit work to take care of my sick husband, I said that I would come to the afternoon session.
I was still working full time. And so I said, I'll be happy to come to the evening session.
Right. But since I did have plans to train as a hospice bereavement volunteer, she said, Tammy, I think it would be helpful for you to attend both sessions. So that's how I ended up getting put into his session. So we went through the 8-week program together, and there were several things that we noticed. Number one, we were grieving differently than everyone else. We really wanted to understand the process, do the work that it takes, and we were encouraging other people in our group. And we really, really liked the program a lot, and we liked the curriculum, and we're both journalers, so we did a lot of writing and a lot of reflecting on our journey.
I was reading a number of books on grief, and especially spousal grief. And so I was excited to see what Dr. Alan Wolfelt, who wrote the book that we used, had to say about it. He had a lot of good things, and he had us thoughtfully reflect on the loss of our spouse.
Right. And we both had gone through, I didn't even know that there was a difference between grief and mourning. There's a difference between those. And I had never heard of the terms anticipatory grief and preparatory grief. That we actually, our spouses were sick for over a year. And so we both were experiencing preparatory grief, preparing for losing them. You know, we're seeing this decline on a daily basis. You can't prepare yourself for the actual death when it occurs, but you do start realizing I will be alone, and what will life look like? You know, you start sorting through some of those tough questions.
Yeah, Tammy mentioned preparatory grief. And our spouses were going through anticipatory grief. They were thinking ahead and thinking how they might help us in the transition period.
Yes. So that's how we actually met at that grief support group. It was an 8-week long program.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio, watching us online, talking to our two special guests today, Bob and Tammy Cranston. Go to their website, tammycranston.com, and also there you'll find the book that we're going to get more details in, and that is the Blank Journal. Before we do just that, tell us about the process of you both deciding to travel all 50 states on tandem bike. What was that process like? What was the plans, and how was the experience?
Well, let me just set the stage for how we actually went from the grief support group to getting married really fast. Is with my former spouse, that's actually the first memoir that I wrote. It's called Why Not Me? He decided to live life to the fullest while dying from cancer. And the journey was so inspiring, I had to write a memoir. So that book is also on my website. But I was telling Bob about this journey, and he said, you should write a book. And he encouraged me to write a book about my journey with my former spouse, which is unbelievable. But when we married, we did not want any gifts. We already had 2 full households that we needed to merge. And one person gave us a blank journal. And Bob said, I know what you and Larry did by living out his bucket list.
And the other thing that hit us is Larry and Barb, our deceased spouses, were both in their 50s. They were both young. And so we said, this could happen to us too. Either one of us could die. So why don't we make up a bucket list of the fun things that we wanted to do before anything else worse happened to us?
Right. So riding our tandem bicycle in all 50 states is one of many items that were written in our blank journal.
When you think and reflect on what the experience was like, I mean, what kind of conversations happened during these trips, and what were you able to gain from just being together so long on the journey?
Yes. I learned that we work well as a couple. I didn't know, that when we would come across an obstacle, that we could actually work together good to solve the problem. There was a lot of unexpected things that happened, a lot of changing plans, a lot of creating memories. And you asked about some of the things that we said. Some of our best conversations took place out there.
One thing about riding bikes in general is if you're riding 2 separate bikes, you're so far apart, like at least 10 or 15 feet, it's hard to talk, especially about anything important.
On a tandem, I'm right behind you.
That's right. We're only 3 feet apart. And so, it gave us a chance to talk about everything that we saw, but about a lot of different things in our life.
Yes, we talked a lot about our past life, past pains, past trauma, and I think I would never have able to be in another relationship if it wasn't someone who went through the same experience. Because what I really like is that it's so non-threatening for us to bring up our former lives. We can talk about our former spouses and what we did with them at any time. And so they're part of our conversation. Our kids, we merged 5 kids into this family, and right after we got married, the first grandchild came in, and right now we have 13 grandchildren. And so a lot of our conversations are about our families and about our grandchildren, about life in general, how we can live life to the fullest. We really have a motto of what can we do to minimize our regrets, because knowing that our spouses died at a young age, and I did become a hospice bereavement volunteer, and with all the patients that I worked with, they all spoke of regrets. And I would tell Bob these, and so we really think about what can we do to minimize our regrets.
And speaking of living life to the fullest, you spoke about being grandparents. How have you both intentionally started passing on the lessons of life, faith, purpose for living, and resilience to your grandkids?
Go ahead.
Well, our grandkids live in 4 different states, Virginia, Tennessee, Illinois, and Washington State. But we make it a big point to try to go see them every year, several times. And we actually,
all summer visiting grandkids.
That's right. And in fact, we had one of the families lived in our house for a year and 3 months. And on another occasion, we had 3 of the grandchildren who lived with us for 4.5 months.
And their mother was deployed.
Yeah. So we intentionally make it a big point. We think that's one of the biggest missions that we have in life, is to try to pass on our values to our grandchildren.
Right. We talk often about our beliefs, about how, you best teach kids by example so that they know that when they are with us, put the cell phones away if they have them. Not all of them have them. Any devices that they bring to play on. No, you're not here to do video games when you're visiting with Grammy and Papa. We're here to experience life. We are very engaging with them. We like to take them new places and, again, figure out things together. For instance, we decided we're taking each one of our grandchildren on a vacation by themselves when they turn 13. And our oldest turned 13 last year, and they get to choose the vacation. He chose New York City, and we asked him, why New York City? And he said, I've never been in a big city. And we said, well, what would you like to do there? He said, I'd like to figure out how to get around on the subway. And he wanted to go see the Statue of Liberty and a Broadway show and, all those New York things. So we we're following him, and we said, here's the map, and here's where we need to go. You figure out how to get, how to use this transit system to get from point A to point B. So we really involve them in the planning and in those details of life where you have to figure things out. And they know by how we live that we are living with purpose. Not only do we travel, spend time with them, we do a lot of public speaking. We do presentations on grief, what grief is, what it's not, how to best companion someone through grief. They're aware of that. And then we pass down our faith and our values by every 5 years, we put out a book just for them. And their stories, I have a picture of the grandchild, and it tells a story from that grandchild. And it's always about lessons learned. And it's something to do with faith. And all of the grandchildren, each family gets this book every 5 years, so they get to read stories about each other. So those are some of the ways.
That's amazing. We speak oftentimes on the show the importance of creating memories because time is short. And you even talk about that in your book. We never know how much time we have left. So with that point, how does that reality help shape your daily choices?
Well, one thing that I think is really important is Tammy had always been a good writer, but she had never written any books. And so once we got married and we started talking about it, that became an important part of the things that we do. Tammy has now written seven books. One with me, the other 6 all by herself. And she went back and got a college degree, something that she had always wanted to do. And that was part of the writing project as well. And then, as we thought about that, a lot of the books involved the idea of grief and mentoring and helping others grow. And so that's what kind of got us into the whole grief ministry, where we want to share with other people about grieving.
Yeah. We find that when we share our story, it does provide hope for others. Starting over is never easy for anyone. And so if we just share our story and we show the steps that we did to get through it, we also share that, I didn't want to get remarried again. But then this door opened. Bob is there and he's pursuing me. And I'm like, no. But then I realized, wow, I could be walking away from a gift. So I'm so glad that I said yes and that we're sharing the end of our life together. But since we got married later in life, we're maybe a little bit more on a fast track for creating memories. But part of our legacy, people will know that we live life to the fullest. And it's not just about us. It's also about giving. We give of ourselves to our families and our grandkids, to the community, and to others through our speaking engagements and our books. So we're back to the motto of living with no regrets. I had so many hospice patients that said, I wish I would have been more forgiving. I wish I would have retired earlier. I wish I would have been a better spouse. These are all things that we're both thinking of now. And if we can minimize our regrets, then we're living a fulfilling life.
When you look at how both your lives, they influence others, especially your kids, your grandkids. When you were able to travel all 50 states, was there anything in that journey that surprised you about maybe what you saw while you traveled, like looking at other people or anything in particular, how you saw America? What do you think about that perspective and what you gained from that insight?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one thing that we discovered is that almost anywhere you go, you will find good-hearted people. Mm-hmm. If you watch the evening news, you just think it's all school shootings and, riots and whatnot. But everywhere we went, we met people of completely different backgrounds, religions, political parties. It didn't matter.
We had nice conversations.
We had good conversations with lots of people.
And so many people were willing to help us when we got locked out of our RV or we had a flat tire. They just came out of nowhere. And that really makes you see America in a different way.
I like that.
Plus, let's also talk about the beauty of it. From sea to shining sea, the landscape is so different. And we always try to book our rides on trails that were in the country so we could see some beautiful countryside. There were sometimes we were in the city, but it's just such a beautiful world that we live in.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and watching us online. Make sure you go to our website, IamRefocusRadio.com. You can catch this episode, talking to our two special guests today, Bob and Tammy Cranston. Go to the website to get the book. The blank journal is on TammyCranston.com. And like her husband said, Bob, it's a place where you can find other books and other resources. So make sure you go bookmark that. And before we end up winding this down, I got a few more questions for you. And one of them is, when you look at the process of putting your thoughts on paper, take us back to, and Bobby has some input as well. What is it like to start a book from beginning to end and then hold your breath? I'm going to publish this one day. What was that experience like for you both?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk briefly about the blank journal because that's the only one that I was really involved with. I helped kind of bounce ideas off her on her other books, but she's the primary author on all of them. On the blank journal, we were just taking notes and taking pictures as we traveled. And after we've been doing it for 8 or 10 states, it hit us. We should be able to share this with somebody. And so we would sit either at home or in our motorhome that we had at the time, and we'd be talking back and forth about things that had happened.
Yeah.
And
so he was doing journaling and I was taking pictures. So between us, we had things documented. And I started out by doing shutterfly books just for us, so we could keep our pictures and tell where we went and what did we experience, and we took pictures of other people we met along the way. But like Bob said, there's so much more to the story. It's not just about biking the United States. It's about starting over. It's about love and loss. It's about what is your new normal, setting goals. As Louise Jane, we won the Chris Litt Book Award, and she said, this book has the power to motivate readers to take a long, hard look at their own lives, prompting a reassessment of personal goals and the very essence of purpose. She said it was one of the most inspiring books that she had the pleasure of reading. So we knew that there was good material in there that would be inspiring for other people. That's why we decided to write it. And it started with, we have all of this. Where do we even begin? We've actually, this is unusual for writing, but we made our chapter titles first. And then we split different stories into the different categories of the chapter titles.
When you think about our viewers, our listeners, there'd be someone out there who's watching this or listening to this on radio, and they feel like they're going through their rough side of the chapter right now. Maybe it's time for them to turn the page and move on. But life can be heavy at some time. And with that heaviness comes, not easy decisions. But with you both, amazing story that you've been sharing on the show, not just showing resilience and grit, but also healing, being able to come together and start a new chapter in your life that is bright and full of joy. Will you say there is peace now? And if so, what will you say to someone who could be grieving right now?
Well, I think I'd say a couple things. We set some goals, but I think it's important for someone when they're fresh from a major grief not to rearrange their whole life. Don't sell the house, don't move to Florida, don't do major things. But setting short-term goals can be very healing. Mm-hmm. Just for instance, I'm going to call my brother and we're going to talk. I'm going to meet my friend and we're going to lunch.
I'm going to go on a walk. Yes.
Sometimes those short-term goals can be very healing.
I think for people that are struggling with moving on, setting those short goals is healing, and it keeps you engaged in life, because that would be the opposite of where you want to be. If you're not going to engage in life, then you're really going to isolate yourself. So just taking small steps forward day by day is what we would really recommend. Getting remarried isn't for everyone. It worked out for us, and we're really grateful. It was really God ordained that we even came together. And for some people, that would work out, and for some people, it wouldn't. But that doesn't mean you still don't have a purpose. You do. It just takes time to restructure that purpose.
And speaking of purpose, I'll leave this for you both to answer is, after living a life that has a lot of memories, because what I take away from you both is that you intentionally made space and time to put other things away and say, you know what, no, let's go on this trip. Let's take our grandson to New York and let's have a teaching moment throughout the whole thing. Let's not just, enjoy, the scenery and go home. Let's make it a learning point. How do you continue to leave not just great memories for your family in these books, but also fulfill a purpose-driven life? Because youngins out there, right, we want to live fast, we want to do it our own way, but if we're not careful, some of the things that are important in life, that are a priority, we kind of skip it and we start filling up that bucket of regret. So how do you both keep that in mind, that legacy and purpose-driven life?
Well, I think it's very important to realize why you're here, why we're here as humans, and what's the point of it all. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people these days are struggling with that. Mm-hmm. For us, we realized that God put us here at this time and in this place, and that we're not here just to have fun.
Yeah.
We're here to be human with other humans.
That's right. And he gifted us with 13 grandkids. I mean, we never would have expected to have that many, but they are a gift to us. So they are part of our mission field. In May, we have a granddaughter who's turned 13, and she decided she wants to go to Paris. So she's the next trip that we're taking. And so we'll be spending a week with her in Paris. So having that one-on-one week when they're 13 is going to be very, very special, because we can pour into them one-on-one blessings, our values, work together, like we said, to teach them how we communicate and how we solve problems. And so it's a special time of creating memories, but it is passing down our faith and our values as well. I think part of our legacy is focusing on the things that really matter, and that's our faith, our family, and how do we want to be remembered? We want to be remembered as people that really loved others and that we valued them enough that we wanted to spend time with them. Because, you know, when you're at the end of your life, you're not going to think about how much money is in your bank account or how clean your house is. You're going to want to focus on living. Did you live a life well lived? Did you develop those relationships? And so that's what we're focusing on. And, you know, we both retired, but we are just as busy now as we were, you know, when we were actively working. And so there's no slowing down. While we can, we will go, see, and do while we can.
It reminds me of two kind of humorous things. So one is nobody has on their tombstone, "Dang it, I wish I'd spent more time at the office." and then the other joke is there are no U-Hauls behind hearses. You know?
The other thing is that I would say about the legacy is tough times will come. They've come in our family. We lost a grandson, and we talked about losing our former spouses. But 3 years ago in June, coming up on the 3rd anniversary, I lost my oldest son. So, and Bob lost his brother a year ago. So grief is just a part of our journey. And I'm really grateful that my Rooted series for children introduces grief. And that came out before my grandson died, and also before my oldest son died. So it was almost a gift to my own grandchildren about death. But it's a gift to the world since it introduces loss. But then it shows how to live a purpose-driven life throughout this tree's whole journey. So, we in addition to, it's not just about taking vacations and creating memories, but it's being there and supporting each other through the tough times as well.
And to piggyback on that, there's a radio preacher, Chuck Swindoll, and he has said, either you're in a crisis,
yes,
or you just came out of one, or you're about to go into one. It's like life is full of challenges, but that doesn't mean that there's no hope. There's always hope.
So since we've had so much grief in our life, and we have a lot of fun as well, a lot of fun and so many memories. And we've been together 15 years almost. I have more memories with Bob in 15 years than I've had in my lifetime previous. That's how gung-ho we are in creating memories. But we decided to become certified in grief companioning, so now we can ourselves know better how to walk alongside people that are grieving, and we can teach others on how to do that.
Well, once again, been listening to I Am Refocused Radio and watching us online, listening to us on radio. Go visit our website, catch this episode and many others, IamRefocusedRadio.com. We're talking to our guest today, Bob and Tammy Cranston. Go to TammyCranston.com, get a copy of the Blank Journal, and also check out her other books and other resources that she has for you all today. Flat out of time, but I want to say real quick, if you had quickly something you would like to say for people as we go full circle and wrap this up, what would that be?
I would say that every moment is precious. Don't put off today the things that you would like to do, the things that you would like to say.
And I don't quote Stephen Covey a whole lot, but I do like one thing that he says, and that is, begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. Know where you want this to end, and then it makes it a lot easier to figure out how to get there.
Well, with that, I want to say to our guests, Bob and Tammy, like always, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
We really appreciate it.
Yes.